Traditionally, being an electronic musician was a rather lonely endeavor, which frequently meant that you worked in complete solitude. Very rarely would you ever have the chance to find others near you who you would be able to interact with on any practical level. Different Skies was originally designed to act as a catalyst so that an otherwise splintered community of electronic and experimental musicians could interact, collaborate, and network in ways not previously available to them. In the fall of 2003, 15 electronic musicians gathered in the northern Arizona desert for a week-long musical experiment at a remote location that was itself a surreal architectural wonder. Cut off from their regular lives, navigating 6 full days of collaboration, rehearsals, and live performance. Drawing inspiration from an especially vivid sea of stars that hovered over them like a gentle cloak of solace. At the same time, I was also a struggling electronic musician, eager to break out of my creative solitude and interact with others on a collaborative basis. The following year, in 2004, I became a participant in Different Skies, attending every event thereafter. 4 years later, in 2008, I developed an interest in animation and motion graphics and decided to try my hand at providing live visuals, which I continued to do for the next 4 years. By 2010, I had grown interested in video editing and began shooting footage for a long-deserved documentary about Different Skies. However, I had a few challenges to overcome before declaring victory. I would have to do this while also remaining an active participant. Using a Spartan collection of equipment I obtained at the very last minute, all with no practical experience and no crew. This is the story of my journey and that of Different Skies itself and my fellow Different Skies alumni. It's a very special journey indeed that happened in a very special place.
I'm Mike Metley, the founder and coordinator of Different Skies. I am the associate editor of Recording Magazine, an internationally known pro audio magazine. We teach people how to record their own music. So I'm living my dream. I'm actually trained as a scientist, but I've been doing music journalism for about 14 years now. I'm a nuclear structure physicist. I did my PhD research at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Atomic City, which is where my record label, Atomic City, came from. Music started out as a hobby for me when I got into grad school, but I got into electronic music when I actually had a salary that let me buy my own synthesizers. Helped out with a cash infusion from an elderly relative who didn't understand what I spent the money on, but he seemed to think I was happy, so what the heck. I've always had a history of putting together groups of electronic musicians. The first one was nicknamed Team Metley, which was a group that ran from 1990 to 1999, really. And we released 3 albums. The first 2 sessions were in Pittsburgh, and people came from as far away as London, all over the United States, and from London, England. We had our first meeting in 1990 in December, and then we met every 2 years after that. So there was a session in 1990, there were 2 mini sessions in 1992, there was a session in late 94 into early 95, there was a session in late 96 into early 97, and then the last session was a live show with rehearsals in late 98, 99. So a decade, basically, 9 years. The 2 guys who started the project with me, who are still with me to this day in some capacity or another, are Nick Rothwell and John Rossi III. John I had actually met years earlier as a friend of a friend that I'd gone to college with who had lived in the area. Nick I had known over the internet. At the time he was working at the University of Edinburgh in computer science. He had just gotten his PhD, and I was working on my PhD in physics at the University of Pittsburgh.
Metley put together this group of people. It was part of this stuff. We're talking about people that have been communicating through the internet from like 1985 to 1989, and we kind of all knew each other, and we were all musicians. And what Metley suggested one day is that maybe we should try to get together and just see what we can do actually in a real life situation, playing music together. So he put together what became known as Team LA, and I don't know, I think that if you counted all the people that were in it at one point or another, it's 17, 18, 19, I don't remember exactly how many people we were. I think the largest number of people we ever had in a group at one time was probably in Tallahassee when we did the ballistic sections, and there was probably 9, 10 people there. 18
people participated at one time or another. It was really the place where I made all the mistakes that I didn't repeat when I came here to Different Skies. Well, yeah, and just learning how this sort of process worked and how it didn't. Incompatible personalities, the types of creative processes that worked and the types that didn't, how you had to keep a strong hand on some parts of the process and in other parts get out of the way and let people do what they did best. I made a lot of mistakes, I made a lot of enemies. There are a number of people in the project who I'm not talking to anymore. But I also got a couple of really good friends who are still with me today as part of the Different Skies project, and friendships going back 20 years. So I can't say it was a total loss.
How did you get the word out?
The internet. All of these people were people I knew during the very early days of the internet. As a scientist, in the 1980s, long before there was easy public access and before the World Wide Web existed, the internet had mailing lists and news groups, and I was well known on all of those as an information source. And that was, again, somebody basically laying down a challenge that I leaped at, where someone had gotten into an argument and someone had said, look, you know, you really can't talk to people that way. If I were in the same room with you, you wouldn't talk to me like that. The internet creates this anonymity. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, you know what? What if we all were in the same room? What if I asked a bunch of you guys to come visit me and we made some music? And that happened in December of 1990. And I've been doing this stupid stuff ever since.
What prompted you to create Different Skies?
Interestingly enough, because someone said it couldn't be done. There was a discussion on an electronic music mailing list on the internet about 10 years ago about Arcosanti, and what a marvelous venue it would be for the creation of an electronic music festival. And then someone said, yeah, it's a pity it'll never work. And off I went. Oh, absolutely. It was Tony Gerber. Tony has been to Arcosanti many times over the past 30 years, and it had always occurred to him that it would be a wonderful place to do a space music concert. It had never occurred to him, however, that it might be possible to pull together a bunch of people from around the world and convince them to go to a place out in the middle of the desert with no guarantee of an audience. That, of course, is the perfect, impossible, stupid challenge to wave in front of my face, and I was immediately off and running.
I started coming to Arcosanti, I believe 1990 was the first time that I came here, doing some recording work in Scottsdale with a friend of mine that was living here in the area. So he told me about Arcosanti, and I came up here. The next following year, I brought Giles here to do some sessions as well. And I brought Giles up here because I was like, you got to see this place. So we came here, did the kind of the tour, and was very infatuated with the Solari stage, and basically, stood up there and imagined what it'd be like to perform.
To fellow different skyer Tony Gerber, visiting a friend out here in Phoenix area, we had a day free, and he said we should go up and check out this place called Arcosanti, north of Phoenix, and we did. And I remember taking the tour, standing on the stage, the amphitheater area, and saying, "This place, I'm gonna have to play here one day. Definitely on the list."
So somehow, I don't know, I had a conversation with Mike, and he called, and we discussed kind of Arcosanti and just kind of different things about it. And then, a few years later, Mike took the reins of the project to make it happen. And really, it's kind of a dream realized for me, and Giles as well, and it's so neat that it came to fruition.
But first, this chord. Now, next question.
I had known about Arcosanti only as something fictional. I found the concept of archologies really interesting and had it occupy my imagination for quite a number of years, probably since the 80s. And it was in 2002 that I received a record album that had been recorded by a new age artist using wind bells from Arcosanti. And they had a picture of Arcosanti on the back of the album. And my head basically exploded because I had absolutely no idea that Arcosanti existed. And I mentioned on one of my music mailing lists that I had made this discovery and that it had basically broken my head. And Tony Gerber came back and said, "Oh yes, I was at Arcosanti many years ago. They actually have an amphitheater, a covered amphitheater with a music center where they do live music performances over the summer performance schedule." And that little switch got flipped in my head like it did back in 1989 when I got the idea for what eventually became the Team Melee sessions. And I said, my God, why don't we do this? Why can't we have a space music festival at Arcosanti? I'm going to set one up.
Well, it all actually started, as far as I was aware, as a discussion on the Beyond EM mailing list. The mailing list of people interested in electronic music. It used to be a place for people, fans of like Berlin School music, mostly, Tangerine Dream, and a lot of people from UK were on that list.
Well, there was an online community that had grown up. It had to be very late 80s or early 90s. I don't remember where I first heard about the idea behind Different Skies, but I heard about the mailing list for it, and I kind of jumped over there and found out it was really going to happen.
But Mike Metley was on there anyway, and knew a lot of the people who ended up coming, and so I think by then there was already a mailing list dedicated to the event, and we had a discussion on there about, what should the name be.
And then kind of settled around the idea of Skies, and then next thing you know, we were calling it Different Skies. So the news group was the thing that kind of, I think, coalesced the whole community. I know it did for me. So I guess I learned a little bit about people like that, but I never really knew them in person. And that was one of the interesting things about Different Skies. One is showing up and attaching faces and personalities to the people that you knew only in text messages and so on.
We called it space music, which, that was a pretty good characterization. But that kind of implies a little bit more sort of meditative than the music actually is, I think. But space music, was another word that was used pretty frequently.
I have to admit that a year before it all happened, I thought that a lot of this was talk, and it's a great idea and it will never happen. But Mike made it happen, and I'm very impressed that happened. So anyway,
I got on the phone and I called a couple of people, and eventually I was put in contact with Joel Tim, and Joel was in charge of the concert series. And there was some juggling involved. I don't remember exactly how it all came together. But basically, I put the word out and I said, I'm doing a festival at Arcosanti. It'll take a week. We'll have these lodgings available. They will feed us. You have to bring in what you're going to use.
the idea of going out to Arcosanti, I was a little bit familiar with it, though I'd never been there. I knew kind of conceptually what it was. And the idea of going out there in the desert and making electronic music was just too delectable to pass up.
As soon as it came up, I mentioned that I thought it was a good place also, and pretty much was on board with it from the very beginning.
This was not the first electronic music retreat. So this idea of getting a group of people together in a remote place to perform and demonstrate music was not unheard of, but no one had ever done it on the level of what we were proposing to do at Arcosanti. Having a bunch of people come out a week early, rehearse, network, get to know one another. I was able to interest Arcosanti in taking a risk for their 2003 summer concert season on a space music festival, taking advantage of the fact that Arcosanti was this beautiful environment.
I spoke with another participant of the first year of Different Skies, John Duvall. I asked him about his experience that year as a member of the band Dweller at the Threshold, a band he had joined only a few months prior to the event, and led by Dave Fulton, who would also attend the first year of Different Skies.
Mike actually contacted Dave Fulton because Dave had the band Dweller at the Threshold. Dave and I had met at the audio shop, and I had gone to see him play locally. Chuck Van Zyl had invited him back to do the Star's End concert, and he needed two other people to go back with him to do the gig. I'd been working on Hell's Canyon for a couple of years in my bedroom. Dave had heard some of my recordings, and he decided to invite me over to his house one day and auditioned. I played, and after about an hour, we looked up at each other, and I said, well, he says, you're on, let's go. So that's how we did the Star's End gig. And then, of course, later on, Dave calls up one day and says, well, we've been invited to do this thing called Different Skies. And I went, well, okay. We decided to rehearse and then give it a whirl because, you know, nobody really knew what to expect. Dave had probably heard of at least half the other members. I was completely oblivious to everybody because I was so green to the electronic scene. I didn't know anybody.
Surely you knew who Mike Metley was.
I had never heard of Mike.
I next spoke with Dave Tristram, who supplied visuals for the first 3 years of Different Skies.
Tim Walters up in San Francisco had participated in this thing called Woodstock Houses, which is a tiny festival of esoteric music that Wayne Jackson created down here in Santa Cruz. I started doing visuals for these guys, and the reason that was interesting to me is because I had kind of a history of doing that on high-end hardware, and Woodstock Housing gave me a chance to really hone my skills on some new software. Long before that, I had actually done computer graphics for the Grateful Dead, for example, touring with them one summer. And I had done a number of live shows, some really intense raves out in Germany. And so Woodstockhausen, though, was a very small-scale thing, and it was around here, and Tim was one of the artists. And I think Tim said, hey, there's this thing called Different Skies happening, do you want to get involved? And so I said, that sounds really cool. And before too long, I was signed up to come.
So what exactly is Different Skies?
Wow. Hello, everybody. It's awfully good for us to be back. Thank you so much for joining us this fine evening. For those of you who have never been here before, Different Skies is an annual Arcosanti event. This is our 8th year. We've been here since 2003. Can I see some shows of hands of people who have never been here before? Never been here before? Oh, wow, lots of newbies. Well, you know what? Hopefully you're in for a really good time tonight, because you're never going to see a music festival like this anywhere else in the world. The way Different Skies works is that members of the electronic and experimental music community from around the world, tonight we have representatives from here in the United States, from the United Kingdom, from Denmark, and from Finland. We get together here in Arcosanti and we spend a week, we basically live on this stage. All of the music you're going to hear tonight has been composed in the last 5 days. This community is a very close-knit one. We make good friendships, strong friendships. Some of us on this stage have been working together for more than 20 years. Some of us are new friends who are joining us for the first time. We're here really for ourselves. This is a sort of a working vacation. We really enjoy the week that we spend together, and I have to say, really, this has been streets ahead of any Different Skies that we've done so far. We think you guys are in for a real treat tonight. Let's get back to the music. Thank you all for coming.
I'm Tony Gerber in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm getting ready to head out to Different Skies 2010 in Arcosanti, Arizona. So I'm getting ready to pack. I'm going to leave my couple things out because I kind of still want to play a little bit this evening. It's Saturday, and the rest of my family's out at the crafts fair, and I'm able to focus and get my things back. So looking forward to getting out there. Signing out.
Sustain pedal for whatever synth controller I get one. Output from the guitar pedal to the mixer. Output from the mixer to the outside world. A spare guitar cable, because you never have too many of those. Slide guitar, guitar stand. Microphone cable and microphone. Disassembled guitar. Have to, there's the neck in here. I think the last time I used this was last year at Different Skies, and I haven't reassembled the guitar since then. The trick now is to weigh the sucker. 55 pounds. You know, can't go without a guitar stand. Gotta have the fan. The guitar, well, I've got a mic cable. Okay, so maybe the microphone and the mic cable. Does this look like 5 pounds? $51.2.
There's the rig. Man, I gotta take it down. Gotta get up to Arcosanti tonight. Hopefully this afternoon. But there's some unhooking to be done here. And I'm gonna try and make that happen. Alright, this is it. Got the car loaded. And now comes the hard part. Gotta say goodbye to my family. Now.
Bye, Daddy. Bye, Daddy.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Bon voyage!
Adios! Into the desert. I go. Bye.
Bye.
It's always hard leaving home for Arcosanti. It's different than going on a business trip. Although I stay in touch with the family when I'm there, the mindset is just so different than normal everyday life, or if I was going away for some other trip. So, I don't know. Leaving home today left a few tears in my eyes, which it's just hard to do. I really look forward to meeting some of the people I haven't met before. I've met them on the internet many times. Some of them I've seen their pictures, some not. And some have participated in this before, but not on a year I have. And a couple people are new. So it's gonna be pretty awesome. Exciting.
Just a few hours from departure. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep. Got everything packed. Things are right at 50 pounds, I would imagine. So anyway, getting close, getting excited. And we'll be hitting the plane, and we'll be there shortly.
Maybe the fan can go in our luggage. $47.8. Good to go.
Oh, here we go. Ha. Awesome. Love this dirt road. And here we are.
One by one, musicians begin their trek to the desert. some traveling from distant lands on the other side of the globe. Some travel by air. Others arrive after a very long day of driving, eager to stretch their legs and begin unloading gear as an empty stage awaits them. Over the course of the day, as many as 20 people will arrive, undergoing the arduous process of setting up their equipment, often well into the night.
Arcosanti, it's kind of science fiction, which matches the music.
It's a unique environment. It's very relaxing, and I look forward to coming here. It's a very calming place to be.
It looks like someone took a bunch of Play-Doh and bam, bam, bam. And because you can't walk in a straight line anywhere, and you can take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to get to your destination.
I think the first impression the very first year we were here is, so this is what it would have been like to live in the Planet of the Apes.
Arcosanti it's a crazy place. It looks like a whole bunch of visual design artists have been given concrete machines for 2 weeks and built this big Rubik's Cube of concrete. It's utterly amazing.
Very unique. I love the outdoor settings here. I love all the arcs and the angles. You can drop your camera and take a photo and have an art piece, blow it up and put it up your wall.
Arcosanti is beautiful. It's a wonderful sort of idyllic little retreat place, especially for making music.
It's really tough to describe, to the point where I just basically say it's a hippie commune with Wi-Fi.
Awesome. Really? Yeah, amazing. It's the greatest thing ever.
Oh, it's beautiful, and it's something completely different from anything else. So it gets us in a really special mood for this happening.
Well, Arcosanti is the perfect location for this event. I've told many people this before. You don't get all of these things in one package anywhere else that we've found yet. And when I'm traveling, I'll visit locations that I think would be a cool place to perform or do a musical retreat, or maybe one of the other single aspects of what we do here, but not all of them combined. We have obviously the stage. We have a built-in concert series. Every Saturday throughout the whole summer, there's regular concerts. So even the first year, we had people showing up already. We have lodging, we have a wonderful cafeteria that we don't even have to think about food, and that is such a big burden on a project like this. If we had to drive into town and get food, take orders, decide where am I going to go today, I don't know what I want. Honestly, it's much easier just to go down to the line and say, there's 2 choices, I'll have that one, let's eat and get back to work. I don't think any of us necessarily, mindlessly consume and then run back to the stage, and we're not that maniacal. We do have a nice meal, and the food, though, is just consistently wonderful and a good variety, and that can't be underestimated, the impact on the creative process. It frees us from having to worry about that whole side of things. The lodging is all on site, so that just saves time. The most essential element, though, that would possibly be missing in other places is the unique architecture here. In the same way that a skyscraper or a cathedral inspires you when you're there, this architecture makes me feel. It reminds me I'm in a different place. It's a different mindset, inspired by constantly looking around and seeing these wonderful, unique shapes and angles that are not usually in the architecture that we spend most of our life in.
It's inspiring here, it's kind of, it's like another planet.
Arcosanti is located 65 miles north of Phoenix, Arizona, in the remote high desert. It is the site of the world's first functioning example of arcology. Arcology is the conceptual union of architecture and ecology, with the idea that the two can coexist. A remarkably ambitious design philosophy created by Paolo Soleri, a pioneering architect and author of a book detailing his theories titled Arcology, the City in the Image of Man. Although the current set of structures are impressive and already occupy a good amount of real estate, it's still just a small fraction of its original design. One thing's for sure, this place definitely reinforces the notion that one's environment can have a demonstrable influence on one's mood or even state of mind.
Well, I think the place certainly has an influence on the music that gets produced there. I mean, especially after everyone is there and lives there for a few days, and there's a certain, sense of the environment there and the architecture and the way of life there that seeps into the music unavoidably.
The facility provides numerous mixed-use buildings and public spaces, each building serving a specific and vital function, where people can live, work, visit, and participate in various educational programs and events. Each year, over 35,000 tourists visit Arcosanti. Numerous workshops are offered to students and visitors from around the world, allowing each person a unique hands-on experience, each contributing to Arcosanti's slow but very deliberate construction.
Well, it's a process that I think I'm drawn to. The coming with very little, meeting a group of people that I now know many of better than at first, but still some are strangers, and trying to gel somehow and create an ensemble, basically an orchestra, in that week and write the material for it and participate in it. And the challenge, I don't know, I'm always left exhausted at the end, but by the time the next year rolls around, ready to look like, yeah, I want to do it again. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's certainly not for the result. In other words, I don't go back often and listen to revisit the old music and go, yes, that was so good, but I always remember every moment of the whole week as being an experience, not necessarily just the concert or any part. There's so many aspects of it. There's now that we're all getting to be friends and almost like family, there's definitely a social aspect. But I think it's the way that it pulls and stretches me in different musical ways. It's like a musical creative massage. Kind of loosens up the tense creative muscles and gets you juiced up for another year of regular creativity. And then you come back here and do your supercharge.
The first day of Different Skies, which is sometimes Sunday, sometimes Monday, is entirely devoted to getting up and running. If we, by the time we shut off for the night tonight, have audio for all present people running properly on stage, that would be a major ass victory. Tomorrow morning, my hope is that we won't be dealing with lingering technical problems, and we'll be actually starting to compose. I do have a couple of things I'd like to say about the composition process for this year, but I'm going to wait until everybody's here so I don't have to repeat myself.
For me, day one was typically a day filled with anticipation and excitement, as both old friends and new friends alike begin to trickle in, and the attendance list finally gets solidified. So it was often only upon arrival that one would know with certainty which colleagues one might actually be playing with that week.
Acclaimed first electronic device powered up the fan.
We're definitely a multitasking bunch, as we each eagerly begin to assemble our rigs, while holding detailed conversations about relatively inconsequential trivia. Or, to put it more elegantly, a nerd off. Nerds unafraid to get their hands dirty, I should point out, with others filling important supervisory roles. Piece by piece, all necessary equipment is moved by hand to the stage. Setting up a stage full of gear so it's certainly refreshing to know that we're finally halfway done.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike Metley. Welcome back to Different Skies 2012. I'm going to be doing a daily blog of the progress of this year's Electronic Music Festival here at Arcosanti in Arizona. I'm speaking to you from Light Scoop 9, which is an amazingly futuristic apartment in the East Crescent building that surrounds the Colli Solari Music Amphitheater. So we're off to a great start. Today we've divided up. People are working in ones and twos, writing songs. Remember, all the material that comes to Different Skies is generated here. When we walk in the door, there are few, if any, pre-composed ideas, and we have a 90-minute concert by Saturday night. That's where we're headed. I'll try to give you some insights and interesting information about how the festival is going and a little bit about Arcosanti and the place where we're located. So stick with us, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Early arrivals began settling in. Some checking in with loved ones back home, while others waste no time introducing song ideas
exact same thing except for heads
to those eager to get started.
And then the coda. And then there is a line that I would like somebody to play on that last repeat, which is, it's an ostinato figure. You'll hear it on the demo. It's just a 4-note ostinato figure that I would like somebody to play. It persists throughout the entire verse. So you can just, as you're listening to, you can start thinking about what role people can think about what roles they would like to take. And here it is.
And with that, the process officially begins, as colleagues race to plug in and join in. As evening approaches, most, if not all, participants will have arrived, with new toys placed on display. and the generation of paperwork begins. Friends catch each other up on their lives. We take a few minutes to cover up our gear before heading up to the Sky Suite to wind down and enjoy each other's company.
You know, when I was doing it in college, it was kind of fast, about 4 years.
Until sleep becomes unavoidable.
Okay, the fingers.
Well, I ran into that problem in the lead sheet because it goes from C flat.
What I would like folks to do, we have, this being early Tuesday, we have three main things that need to be done during the day today. On the logistics side, I would like folks to give Ivan their cooperation and help. Last night, we actually managed in our first day on stage to get audio up and running and noise free. So, hooray for us. Yes. That's a big damn deal. 2003, we weren't there until Thursday.
Thank you.
I would like people to think about compositional ideas, pieces that they'd like to propose. Ideally, we should present between 75 and 90 minutes of music to the audience. Once we settle into rehearsals, we'll do the usual, where the morning and afternoon blocks are set out in half-hour increments. If someone feels they need an hour or want an hour to develop an idea for the more composed through-going pieces, that's fine, just ask. I want to start in on that schedule hardcore tomorrow morning at
9. Day 2 is like taking that last long inhale before diving into the pool.
What do you look back at in your life and laugh at that you didn't like at first?
Oh, that I did like at first? I would say, looking back, I would laugh at my youngest brother, Anthony, because he's really funny.
What I was hearing was 6 minutes was about right, but I would like, of that 6 minutes, about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes of silence. Pull out about a third of what's in there.
How about this? How about we perform the dialogue with samples? So one person is playing a sample, then the other person plays the answer.
Or we could mix them up and
I
get everybody.
Because then it's not. Then we're not just performing to a tape.
Yeah, okay. and that's actually.
So does anyone want to volunteer to edit?
I'll tell you what.
I mean, I'll sit in
Two
on the
things. This is a two-step process. I'll go ahead and I'll do a dialogue cleanup, and I can even separate them out to different one person versus the other. I'll go ahead and I'll clean up all that, and then
I'll just make a reason file, and you'll look
exactly.
Okay, well then in that process, once it's cut up, we then have to listen to it in order and say, I consider this chunk good.
Why don't you do that first, so that he doesn't have to edit stuff?
We should go through it tonight if we have time. We'll sit down, headphones on, go through it, and I'll say, I like this bit.
Then you'll hand that to Dave, and Dave will cut it, and then he'll hand it to me, and I'll create instruments.
And what we'll do is we'll just
very quickly get
okay, so obviously the first stage is editing dialogue. The first stage is cutting it down. And John, why don't you've got an audio clip, I would assume.
Just a WAV file.
Let's sit down. We'll both put on headphones. We'll go through and we'll pick the stuff that works, and then Dave can start chopping them up. So very easy, very good.
For the next few hours, we would take full advantage of the freedom that an absence of structure affords, because all that would change once morning arrived.
Hello and welcome back to the Different Skies 2012 video blog. I'm Mike Metley, the founder and coordinator of Different Skies. Well, it's Tuesday, and as is customary for this early stage of the festival, we're starting to put together new ideas. We're writing songs. and we've begun dealing with the logistic problems of getting the stage set up. We already have our music equipment running, and all of our levels are smooth, but we're dealing with things like dressing the stage, starting to get the video system ready. We're going to be rehearsing a couple more pieces tonight, and then we're going to begin what we call the All-Star Jams, which are essentially wide-open improv sessions that allow us to get used to being on stage together, listening to one another, and improvising together. The final performance on Saturday night always has a very strong improvisational aspect to it, and by learning to listen to each other, we can produce the kind of really great improvisational electronic music that we're well known for.
After a very conversational evening meal, many of us would climb to the top of Arcosanti's iconic arches and take in the beauty of a vivid sunset in the remote Arizona desert. We then turn our attention back to the stage, where by day it serves as a structured, formal workplace, and by night it becomes our musical playground, where we begin to practice the art of listening, like this piece that I managed to catch in its entirety, illustrating how a small musical seed can be planted and then bloom into something truly remarkable.
have gotten their ideas out. We still have a few more we haven't heard from. Please keep in mind we'll be choosing these on merit, so do not feel that you need to start self-censoring just because there's already an existing list. So who have I not heard from? Nick, if you will, please.
I got 2 pieces. One we ran yesterday afternoon.
While much of the previous day is spent generating musical ideas,
I'm going to call it Mode Shark.
day 3 is spent molding them into shape, as numerous song concepts are offered for consideration.
You heard on the phones with more stuff.
On the phones with more stuff.
Yep.
Okay, who's next? Joe, you're standing right there and staring at me.
Okay, I have 2. One is the Zero Man piece, and we had a fabulous jam going. I started that off, and then everybody just sort of came right in, and we had something really great going in no time flat.
What's the name of the piece? Zero Man?
Zero Man.
You remember that mode piece called Popcorn back in the 70s?
John, Giles, Brian, Paul, Greg, Nick, Bill. Anyone else? Okay, very nice. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 pieces to work on.
Too many, or can we suggest one more?
I'm always open to suggestions.
So, the Resurrection of the Merciless Sky.
Oh, the Heat Suite.
The Heat Suite. That could be more improvised, and it just needs to be an expression of how fucking hot it is here.
Well, I don't
How hot, Giles?
I don't mind.
Hot.
I don't mind leaving that. All right, so that's 17 pieces.
We're probably going to cut 1 or 2.
Start whittling.
Or 3 or 4 or 5.
Or 3 or 4 or 5, yes.
So if we just want to map, again, have an improvisation and we map out a certain length of time, because you said you wanted to do a longer one, I'd rather map out a longer time and just each day do an improv without
Despite the somewhat serious attitude being cultivated, sometimes it's just plain difficult to avoid those unexpected moments of hilarity.
So in the Kiva, ... Okay,
Garden of
Paul
Kiva?
and all concerned.
Yes.
In the Garden of Kiva. I like that, actually. That's even better. In a Garden of Kiva.
Because you have a reputation for...
Giles, let us see. What I'm going to do is, let us start with Light the Fuse and Run Away at 1 p.m.
Yes.
Bill. That will be Bill, Giles, Greg, Joe, Paul, and John. So you will be needed at 1 p.m. All right, then after that, Tony, I'd like you to work that ambient drift piece you're talking about. That's currently a quartet with Kim, Otso, and Nick. That will be 1:30.
And the scale is B-flat Locrian, except that we use a major third, D natural instead of D-flat. Okay, that's the beginning of the B, and that's D-flat minor. And then it goes to G diminished, D-flat minor, G diminished, D-flat minor, the final chord which we hold is C minor, major 7, flat 9.
no blogs tonight.
After the previous day of successful rehearsals, day 4 typically begins with an adrenaline shot of enthusiasm and goodwill. Various combinations of musicians juggle their schedules, which reflect their degree of participation, or lack of, on any given song. With as many as 17 pieces to consider, it's definitely best to choose wisely. Now, some of you may have already been wondering about the apparent risks that exposure to the elements can present, and we were certainly not immune to sudden rainstorms.
And in fact, I would even say if it's going to rain tonight, we might want to think about after dinner, just breaking and moving while we've got light.
Yeah, if it's raining tonight or around the night, absolutely.
Well, right now, let's figure this one out. Right now, it's 6 p.m. hour, cloudy, 7 p.m. mostly cloudy, and at 8 p.m. scattered thunderstorms, 9, 10, 11 thunderstorms. But right now it says there's just cloudy, but it's actually raining. So.
The rest of my rig.
So I don't know what the difference between scattered thunderstorms and showers is, but it's 50%, 40% all till the wee hours of the morning. And then it just says by 10 o'clock few showers, and by 1 p.m. mostly sunny.
Well, then what that sounds like to me is, after dinner, let's get the essentials in here so we can work together. Let's rehearse tonight. Russ?
That means no video.
Yeah.
Video in here.
Or video in here.
However, during Different Sky's final event in 2012, one particularly stubborn rainstorm provided such an obstacle to rehearsal progress, we had to resort to unprecedented and ultimately ironic measures, inadvertently reliving the same rehearsal dilemma that Year 1 participants faced.
This inside it actually has the engine of this thing.
Yeah.
It's a card. Yeah. So I took the card and put it inside. And the gallon is the same thing.
Man just needs a place to hang his hat.
It's a little different because it's controlled and integrated with everything else. But the standalones are pretty cool. Kind of like microcube.
I assume twice the board weight or something like that too. Basically.
Is that Barney?
I could do that.
We do that in the cover band as well.
Hey everybody, Mike Metley here. It's day 4 of Different Skies 2012, Thursday. Under normal circumstances, today would have been the day of decision, where we had an entire morning and afternoon of rehearsals to really finalize the set list and get things laid in so that we could then polish for the next couple of days before the performance. However, as you can probably see, Mother Nature had other plans. The first of the winter storms has come in over the canyon and the Agua Fria, and Arcosanti has absolutely been clobbered with rain. We woke up this morning and ran out to make sure that all of our gear was tarped and safe. We lost most of the morning. About half the afternoon, we decided after dinner that in case it started raining again, we were going to actually bring most of our gear inside. And that's what we've done. What you're seeing here are the things which are too big to move, like the drum kit and the video station. But right now, all of my colleagues are in the next room, safe and warm, practicing songs, because if we don't rehearse now, we're not going to get another chance. Fortunately, the weatherman says that after tonight and tomorrow morning, things should brighten up and stay bright for the concert. We'll be moving out here once the stage is dry, and I hope to bring you more updates on how the process has been going as we move along. Thanks for staying with us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. From Different Skies 2012 in Arcosanti, Arizona. Mother Nature continues her assault on our concert. Last night we were awakened at about 5 in the morning by the sound of what appeared to be several large locomotives being dropped on Arcosanti. As it turns out, when we came down this morning, what we discovered was hail. Bunches and bunches and bunches of hail. This is actually collected off the video recording rig, which thank heavens was tarped. We're now rehearsing in the back room out of the elements, and we're going to be waiting for the stage to melt. Then we'll sweep off the standing water, mop things down a little bit, and try to get the gear out. They tell us that after about 11 o'clock this morning, there isn't going to be any more rain. Do you believe them? I believe them, because you know what the alternative? The alternative is drinking. Lots and lots of drinking, and frankly, that's a show I've starred in before. We'll catch you soon.
As the storm wraps up its encore, we seize every opportunity to hone and refine material for the concert, which was now fast approaching.
Where were you born? What was your first job? What was your first job? What was your...
My first job was at a dentist's office, going through, helping him go through his files and get rid of his files.
Interesting, like to feel better in your life.
One of the interesting things I've done in my life would be the Holy Reservation. Because I got to see exercise, dinosaur tracks. Yeah, it was very, very cool.
When you look back, you look back, you look back, you look back. When you look back at
Goodnight.
Goodnight.
Goodnight. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
This should be the last thing.
Eventually, the rain subsides, and we cautiously begin to move our gear back to the stage. quickly attempt to regain some sort of effective rehearsal schedule for the time remaining.
No. Yeah, music. Ah, there we go. Music.
After the evening meal, we do a full tech rehearsal without interruption, followed by a bit of light repositioning before launching into our last private jam without the scrutiny of an audience.
Wouldn't know where to begin. Wow. Mixolydian man march. It had a country flavor, it had a Cajun flavor, it had a marching band flavor. It sounded like the Beatles, like on Strawberry Fields.
Traditionally, day 6 is somewhat eerily calm. Not wishing to risk rehearsal fatigue, the day of the concert is typically devoid of scheduling and rehearsals, except in the most extreme cases. Allowing participants the chance to address technical issues with their rig that they may have been postponing during the week, or to simply catch up on sleep that they also may have been postponing during the week.
Well, from where I'm standing, it looks like this is a go.
After a brief session of song order brainstorming, it's time for another well-deserved rest before tending to one final detail, posing for the traditional group photo. Oops, looks like that well-deserved nap isn't quite over yet. Before long, we begin to release the week's worth of stress, the only way we know how. During the day of the concert, another magical metamorphosis gets underway. In just a few short hours, the cafeteria is given a much more elegant facelift, and the menu selection is truly refined, with a wonderful Epicurean flair. We tend to adopt the attitude that no matter how well or poorly we may perform, it's far more important to simply enjoy the moment on its own terms.
Somebody want to towel me? Yeah. Then you'll be a member of the club. Then you won't have one. Until then. Actually, it's almost stronger that Mike. I think Mike, the only thing that helps is that awesome.
It's a good show.
You came from LA just for the show?
I did, yes.
Are you nuts?
Yes, a little, I guess. No, it was a wonderful time. No, my wife and I, driving back from Texas from vacation, and we were passing Rehearsal, and I said, hey honey, if we take this strange route, we can visit Arcosanti. And she was like, oh, okay. And we both visited, and she said, oh my god, this is like every hippie science fiction novel. And we loved it. And I saw the list of upcoming events. It said Space Music Festival, October the 2nd and 7th. And so I had to come.
This brick here will de-rig everything. I could take a rig down about 30 to 40 minutes with this brick. Otherwise, by hand, it takes like 45 minutes. So I use the brick.
How would you assess this year's show, Dr. Mike Metley?
But you don't know.
A lot of people are saying it's the best yet. I don't know about that. It's like trying to be a favorite kid, but considering everything that we had to fight against this week, I'm amazed. It's just it's a testament to the wonderful work that these guys do. Aw, I got my tummy rubbed.
Okay, we're here for our post-show review. What did you guys think of the show?
I actually thought it went pretty damn good.
Really?
I liked it.
I liked it because we pulled out of 3 serious train wrecks and pulled them off.
Yeah,
That's what I like.
I definitely agree with that. I found new ways of making it sound better, and new ways of making it sound not so better. Like everybody else rose to the occasion around me and my efforts to cover for my mistakes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
We had a collision on 3 separate occasions. Really bad.
It's been great.
Day 7 is often somewhat melancholic and bittersweet, with the hard reality of departure looming large.
Some assembly stat water. Blah, blah, blah.
Guys, I'm going to be wrapping up tables probably for the next half hour. So about 9:30ish, if I could get just a couple of hands to help load up the truck, that'd be great.
I came multimedia, one of those has an interface.
Yeah. So the line six.
Thank you, Greg. Keeping cool in Arcosanti is very important. You must always have spray bottles. I was going like this and letting it come down on my head. Ooh. And it is like, oh, I can curl my hair. Moisture. Just like back at home. Instead of this dry weather, just keeping everything so straightish.
Hair Tips by Bill Fox.
Already trying to process the blur of activity. Some will be traveling back to the other side of the globe. Others look forward to several hours on the freeway. As we all return to our regular lives, we do so with a sense of accomplishment and pride. Our creative palettes refreshed and rebooted. Always ready for the next time.
I'll be back. I gotta run up to the press kitchen.
Oh, these guys. This is the part I always don't like, saying goodbye to all the friends.
Indeed.
Indeed. Goodbye, Arcosanti. It's been wonderful once again.
Different Skies spanned 10 consecutive years, beginning in 2003. Among the annual events, Year 1 stands out as truly unique.
Loosely, the format for that first year, as I understand it, was that it was bands or groups of people who were being invited collectively. Like, we were invited because Dave had the band Dweller at the Threshold, of course. And so we were invited as Dweller, not individually.
So people came with, people came as bands and as solo performers and played material that was not developed at Different Skies. So that, I think, was the biggest difference.
We rehearsed in Jeffrey's garage for months in the heat of the summer, just 100 degrees. Rehearsed our asses off to get all these tunes down. We get down here and jam the first night with Paul and Giles, and Dave says, "Screw the song list, we're just going to jam with these guys." Wait a minute. You made me sweat my ass off all summer long in this garage, and I even want to listen to the whole song. It's your band, but whatever. So that's what we did. It was a big jam time.
The very first year of Different Skies, everybody kind of spent the week, broke up into smaller groups.
We broke up into at least 3 different rehearsal groups. One group went down, that I was a member of, went down in the library and just set up down there. And the idea was we were going to rehearse there for 2 or 3 days, I think, and then all converge on the stage. And so the idea was to have at least maybe three groups kind of working in parallel.
That was funny. I forgot that there were people in the library set up. We had two here that was in the music room.
Yeah. There was the East Coast, the West Coast group.
And there was not that much interaction between the groups set up in the different rooms.
The first year we had rehearsal rooms in 2 different places. Then we only moved everything onto the stage like the night before the concert. And then each group played their thing, and that was it. It wasn't ever everybody jamming together.
When we all moved onto the stage, it was almost a reset where nobody knew what everyone else was doing except a few in your own group, and it was kind of going to start over.
And we had multiple concerts because we didn't have the luxury of having all prepared material. So we had daytime concerts and we had nighttime concerts.
And so the night of the concert, it was, the one group that set up in the library played 3 or 4 songs, and the group that set up in the music room played 3 or 4 songs. And there wasn't that big mass collaboration. That actually kind of seemed to come about the strongest at year 3.
I'm not sure why we chose to do that, except for that we came with the preconception of prepared material and an organized band.
Well, we just didn't realize that we could actually be on stage.
That we could pull it off with that many people on stage. It's interesting. I don't think that it could have evolved without going through that first year of just coming prepared to do something. We had to come prepared, and that's when we, I think, started to observe that the interaction was way more interesting than anything we could prepare had.
With the help of Tucson musician and radio show host Doug Wellington, Different Skies would finally be a reality.
In year 1, he provided the PA system and the mixer. And we would not have been heard if it wasn't for him in year 1. He was working with an original model Roland V mixer. The original V mixer was a really buggy device. Doug spent the first 4 days of that week on the phone with Roland Tech Support trying to get it to work. We were actually aided by the fact that with the group split in half and practicing and rehearsing in their individual spaces, Doug had a chance to get the D-Mixer up and running.
I think all of us the first year were a little bit, we didn't know what to expect, not only in terms of what we were going to be asked to do and what we were going to need to play, but also where we kind of fit in on the hierarchy of talent.
I was intimidated. All these guys had electronics credentials going back, years and years, and I was the absolute greenhorn, you know, especially seeing as how I came down that first year as a keyboardist, and my keyboard chops are minimal. So I just thought, well, you know, I'm going to hang on for dear life and try not to embarrass myself and see what happens. And it worked.
When you're talking about a festival with people involved in large and small audiences, groups that are better known than others, you would have, to some extent, a sense of, well, you know, everybody knows who I am, nobody knows who you are. But that was relatively mild. That was not a huge thing. And over the course of that first week, the playing field got leveled.
I think people realize that having this as a festival for pre-existing groups, well, it either needed to be all that or not that at all, because it was pretty easy for people to get marginalized.
I thought that jamming was unwieldy, and I repeated this to Mike over the years, that expecting to pull off a really coherent show with that many people in that short of time is really difficult. But of course, as you well know, we did it every year. It always happened, and it was amazing.
So we had people playing during the afternoon on Friday for the school students. Then we had the other acts performing that night for the paying audience at Arcosanti. And then Saturday was when the magic happened, because we had a whole other concert to do. People had gotten their chance to go out on stage and do things on their own on Friday. And someone, I don't know who it is, it may have been me, but I doubt it, said, well, we've all had a chance to listen to each other. We all know what each other can do. Let's mix it up and let's create stuff with random groups of people who might want to play together. We had a bunch of performances where people came out and just had fun and went a little nuts. And everyone came off Saturday night looking at each other and saying, my God, that's what we should have been doing all along.
I don't have a clear memory. How different was year 2 from the first day? Did we start?
It wasn't. You guys still brought individual solo acts.
Russ, that was your first year, right?
First year.
Okay, so I remember the stage of the famous medley drawing of Russ and everyone on this side and everyone else on that side of the line.
Guilty as charged. Heck, I even had a checklist. Guitar, check. Keyboards, check. Drum kit, check. Percussion, check. Didgeridoo, check. Playing the didgeridoo while holding the guitar while standing in front of the drum kit, check.
From a purely improvisational standpoint and as a sort of a distilled moment, the encore for 2004 was one of those peak experiences. It was one of those moments where everything just worked. You know, we were all on this tremendous high, and we had this real sense of, you know, we're in the zone, let's keep going. And we played for another hour. And that is the stuff that got edited into the material that's on Arcs and Angles. This tremendous positive energy that we discovered by accident in 2003 became the purpose of 2004. And the resulting music was amazing because everyone had come with the intent of making it work.
I just know by the time that I returned, anything I learned from year 1 was pretty much done. I mean, it was gone. That was all. And very, I think, rightfully so. I thought it was much better having an opportunity to interact with more people. Was the primary reason why I think I wanted to come originally anyway.
The second year, we decided to just put everybody on the stage from the beginning and then take turns, rehearsing of the separate subsets and things like that. And then eventually at the end of the night, you know, we had a couple of times where we just all played at the same time and we realized, hey, we can do this. We can have 16 electronic musicians all jamming together at the same time. I mean, it probably had never been done before, but we kind of enjoyed it and it worked.
2005 was the year when I felt we hit the groove. It didn't have the sort of stunning magic that 2004 did, but we had enough new people there that there was a real sense of accomplishment and polish.
I think the general opinion on the street is that electronic musicians, you know, especially the ambient artists, really aren't that well versed in, you know, elaborate compositions, charts, or whatever. And I think it might have been a while before everybody looked at each other on stage and went, hey, you know what? I think we all here can handle this. I'm going to start bringing in some stuff. So it's when I realized that I could actually do that and people would accept me at that level, that I just went, oh man, this is going to be more fun than I could possibly stand.
Talking about hitting the groove, 2007 was the first year we had Ivan. He deserves so much credit for us sounding as good as we did because we never had to worry about the PA.
Well, the only phrase I ever came up that I thought actually really caught the full description was nerd band camp. Because, I mean, that's really what it is. It's a bunch of guys who, most of whom are pretty hardcore hardware geeks, converging in the desert to kind of feed their addiction for a few days.
Running visuals demanded my full attention. And with that, I had to accept the reality that year of watching my colleagues from afar, an experience I soon grew to regret, and a mistake I would never make again.
That was the year when the canopy came down, when the amphitheater was no longer shielded from the sun. And that made a damn big difference in terms of what we could do or not do on any given day.
In the case of the improvisations, you know, when you're loose and you're just jamming and you're trying out different things, you can always hit a peak that's better than you ever will during a performance, almost always. During the performance, you have to be a little more careful. You're not willing to make that kind of a trade-off, but you are when you're just playing, you're just jamming. So you're always going to have a higher peak there, and so in some sense it's going to be a letdown because you always remember the highlights. You remember the parts where it kind of struggled along and didn't go anywhere for 20 minutes. You know?
It was now year 8, as Different Skies was reaching its zenith in terms of community support and enthusiasm. Due to the unique nature of the event, and the fact that each year was more successful and popular than the previous year, the continued absence of a formal documentary was becoming conspicuous. Out of frustration and a perceived sense of duty, I decided to give it a try. All I knew was that doing something was better than the alternative. However, Mike Metley's years of effort had not gone unnoticed. as that year team of musicians got together and had a custom statue cast in his honor as a token of their esteem. Followed by a poignant serenade performed live on stage by a local Phoenix choir.
I have never doubted the support that I had from the Different Skies community. I have always felt that they have given me back far more than I have given them. And if there was ever a demonstration of that, it was that night. Alan said that he would not let the festival die. And I said, I'm going to remove myself completely from the process, and I did. I did not read Different Skies' email for a year. I was off dealing with my own stuff, and it was Alan's job. And I explained to Alan how everything worked. I told him how I did it, and I let him go.
For me, the music is always going to be secondary because I really don't know where I fit in. But meeting all the people was just amazing, and I met some wonderful people I still feel close to and friends with to this day.
I don't know what year I first noticed this, but I really didn't care, like to even hear the concert recording necessarily again afterwards, but I wouldn't miss the next year for anything. It's like it was a strange thing to try to figure out, why do I not really care the result. It's the journey. It's a classic The Journey thing.
Yeah.
It's what it's become.
Yeah,
same for me.
Well, there was a long time when the concert recordings were not that good. I mean, you listen back to it and
but that didn't make me want to come back any less. And, and that's odd.
Yeah,
that's my surprising. Like you're surprised that you're enjoying notes, and I'm surprised that the lack of a payoff at the end of the week and an ability to point to something on SoundCloud or something or YouTube that shows us off to the world has not deterred me from coming back and enjoying it every year.
What matters for me most when I go back home from here, I go back with head full of fresh ideas.
I feel the same thing too. I forgot about that aspect. It's like an incubation for, or I don't know, maybe it's just permission to be free and creative and let anything happen.
Well, for me, it was 100% about the experience. It's fine to have a product at the end. I mean, in the earlier years, I cared more about having a product. Just like I did with my music in general, I thought it was important to produce something, As I matured musically, I became more interested in the experience of playing with the other musicians and jamming and learning and socializing and everything else, and less in what the end product was going to be.
To me, the end product has always been secondary. For me, Different Skies has been about the experience. I mean, yes, we have a show to put on a Saturday night, and we want it to be as good as, our short time frame will allow. At some point, the performance becomes secondary. It's the experience.
The music in 2012 was beautiful. We had a small, very focused ensemble. Fulton came back. Otso, of course, was there. You were there. Alan was there. John Crickle was there. Giles, of course, was there. Tim was there. And this gave us our chance. This gave us our chance to put it to bed nicely. I got very, very lucky with the people who showed up. And the people who showed up generally made a big point of doing their best to work together. And any conflicts or issues we had tended to resolve themselves. But it's not because I chose people well.
I have this personal style that's rather orchestral chord-based and odd tuning lick-based. Basically, I was trying to take a non-technology, really, instrument and trying to weave it into a technological genre because everybody around me is adding, the elements that I can't. And I thought, these guys are going to help me fit this in electronically, even though I'm not playing really an electronic instrument per se. Over the years, we've all found that there's a core people, whether it's the whole band or just a few people here and there, and you trust them to make what your idea is happen. And I just kind of knew that all the guys around me, whoever I asked to play on my tunes, would make it work for me. And which is basically what the thing of the whole gig is. People bring in their stuff, and because we're, quite literally a band of brothers, we make it work for them. And that's the payoff. That's the reward.
After 2010, I probably should have just laid it to rest. But there's something about the mystique of making it to year 10. Even though I had to take a break in year 9, I really wanted it to go the rest of the way. And there was 1 year without me. And it was musically successful, but the logistical aspects of getting from point A to point B essentially destroyed the one person who felt he had to do it in my absence. And he said, I've done it once, I can't do it again, not without help. And coming back and doing it in 2012, it was probably the hardest of the years because of external forces acting on us. And the thing that I tried to warn everybody on the mailing list of for years before the inevitable fall of the final curtain was, this is something that takes a lot out of me. It's a lot of work and a lot of heartache. And while I am given back in tremendous measure by my friends, while I gain so much music and so much beauty and so much emotional support from my friends, that does not erase the amount of effort that I put into making this thing happen. With that having been said, if I don't have the mental and emotional energy to make this festival happen out of whole cloth, then it's not going to happen. I wrote a manifesto in 2002, the year when this was just coming together. In that manifesto, there was one statement I made that turned out to be prophetic. What I said was, for me personally, the single worst thing that could happen would be for Different Skies to become a success. Because with the amount of effort going into putting this festival together, bringing these people together, juggling the finances, working out the logistics, getting people to play nice, producing a show, and then getting everybody home safely at the end, the festival was going to consume my life. And I would have little or no headspace left for doing any other music. And in retrospect, that was almost entirely true. Different Skies was supposed to be about the community. It was supposed to be about us. And part of the reason why Different Skies went away is because it was focused on me much more than I think was healthy for it. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen with or without me. And what I have said since the very beginning is go thou and do likewise. Wishing for something does not make it happen. Wanting something badly enough does not make it happen. You have to combine intent with action. And if it was meant to happen, someone is going to step up, or some group of people are going to step up, and they're going to put into it the energy and the organizational time and the lifeblood that I put into it. And if no one is willing to do that, then it does not deserve to live. I think that the facts bear out that no single individual came forward with the ability to keep it going in my absence. And when I realized that it was about me to some extent, and without me putting my energy into it, it was not going to continue. That's when I decided that it had to stop. We are all contributors. We have all brought a great deal to this experience. Some of us have come once, said our say and left. Some of us have come again and again over the years as time has allowed. For the vast majority of people, it was a wonderful, fun, uplifting, enthusiastic experience, which had very, very little in the way of downside. We're all going to keep working together. These friendships are not going to go away. The things that we've accomplished, the people we know, the progress we've made can't be erased. And so many great collaborations and music projects and friendships came out of that festival. Having it end after 10 years and go out, not with a whimper, but go out quietly with a nod and a smile, that was, in my opinion, the right thing to do. I don't think we had anything more to say. And with that in mind, I have to look to the future in my ongoing, decades-long quest to bring groups of musicians together to create beauty. And I am not sorry that Different Skies concluded after 10 successful years. It had a really good run. It was an amazing time. We made so many good friends. We produced so much good music. It was a beautiful way to spend 10 years of your life. I've been very blessed. I've been very lucky. And now I packed up my tent and I'm over the hill and I'm on to my next challenge. I'll work with old friends. I'm looking forward to working with new friends. And the future is as bright now as it was in 2002 when I got the initial list of 16 people saying that they were going to come and join me on this crazy adventure.